Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Sunday. It is November the 23rd. We'll go ahead. We'll start at the top of the board. That is normally how these things work. Mikko Rantanen has been suspended. We kind of felt that was coming. That hit on Coronado last night was brutal. But he has not been suspended technically for that hit on Coronado. It's an automatic suspension because he got his second game misconduct for a physical infraction. So it sounds like if not for this automatic one-game suspension, maybe he wouldn't have got anything. I haven't seen anything posted today on social media from any of the reporters I follow who normally will say if there's something coming. If there's something not coming from Department of Player Safety, it's been quiet. I think the Rantanen hit on Coronado deserves more than a game, to be honest. I thought that was brutal. Coronado looked like he had a broken nose after that incident as well. So I'm just throwing, and when we get down to the New York Islanders portion of this, in fact, we'll go ahead, we'll jump down to the Islanders portion of this. Romanov, who got the hit from Rantanen in the previous instance where he got the game misconduct, and Department of Player Safety decided, well, that's not too bad and it's fine. Romanov's going to have shoulder surgery, and he's out 5 to 6 months. So it's not a pretty picture that's been painted here. Rantanen now has two fan bases that are very upset with him and two teams that are very upset with him as well. And it doesn't sound like we have anything else coming from the Department of Player Safety with this. So I completely vehemently disagree with only a one-game suspension, especially since it sounds like it's just an automatic. Like, this is what we have to do. This is how the rules work. Rather than this was brutal last night and he needs to be suspended. So you guys can let me know your thoughts. I think that more should have been done here. Georgiev. When Georgiev was signed by Buffalo, it was one of those curiosities. Georgiev came off of a really rough season last year. And so the idea was, well, maybe they know something. Maybe they can get his game back to where it was. He's ended up in the AHL, and now he's on waivers for purpose of a contract termination. My guess is he probably goes to the KHL. Georgiev, it was quite the fall from grace for Georgiev over the last couple of seasons, and so he'll get a chance to maybe get his game together overseas. We'll see if he ends up coming back over to the NHL at some point. But for now, Georgiev's chapter in the NHL seems to be closed off. The Montreal Canadiens are apparently the front runners to sign Alexander Texier. One of the reasons this video is a little later than I was originally going to post it is because with Texier becoming an unrestricted free agent, it definitely sounded like we were going to hear about a signing, but it looks like the signing is going to have to wait until after my video's been posted. So the Blues terminated his contract. Montreal is seen as the front runner to sign Texier, although there are a couple other teams that are involved as well. We'll see how that ends up going for them. The Philadelphia Flyers, not a record, but close to it. They had 3 goals in 26 seconds last night, the 5th fastest all time for 3 goals in a game by a team. And the record is 20 seconds, scored by the Boston Bruins on February 25th of 1971 against the Vancouver Canucks. So that would have been their first season in the NHL. And Boston at that time they were pretty good. Boston in the early 70s, they had this guy named Orr. They also had this guy named Phil Esposito. They had Cheevers in net. They were pretty good. So, at any rate, the Flyers with that 3 goals in 26 seconds, just remarkable. And it was remarkable, too, how the Devils just melted down in that one. So, a little bit of both. Philadelphia doing really well, and New Jersey kind of melting down in that point in the game. And that was the game, of course, for both teams. The Pittsburgh Penguins news, and the reason why I'm wearing a Maryland Lemieux jersey. Crosby becomes the 6th player in NHL history with 500 multi-point games, and I wore Lemieux because he's not on the list, but if he'd played more games than he did, he definitely would have been on the list. Gretzky leads the way with 824 career multi-point games. Second on the list is Jaromir Jagr with 540. Then you've got Dion with 513, Messier with 513, and Howe with 511. Of course, there are the detractors that'll say, well, Gretzky did that during the 80s, so why didn't anybody else? Everybody else was playing in the 80s too. Nobody did what Gretzky did. He was definitely at that next level, and now Crosby joins these players. So there's a realistic possibility that by the end of this season, with how well Crosby's playing, that he passes Howe, Messier, and Dion on the list, and he'd only have Jagr and Gretzky to look up at. And by the time his career's done, I would expect him to be second on that all-time list. I think 40 more multi-point games, definitely feasible for him. Burakovsky's out today for the Chicago Blackhawks against the Avs. There's no timeline for his return at this point. Dickinson will be in the lineup for Chicago, but not having Burakovsky hurts. It does feel like Chicago's on a bit of a downswing, so they're going to have to try to turn that around. It's not easy to do that against Colorado Avalanche. So we'll see how they do without Burakovsky. The Detroit Red Wings, Soderblom, has been placed on injured reserve by Detroit. They've recalled Gustafsson from the AHL. So with Soderblom on IR, it's too bad. I think he's had a decent start to the year when he's been in the lineup for them. So hopefully he's not out for too long. I haven't seen how long he's going to be out. Whereas the Colorado Avalanche, no, Brindley's going to be week to week. He's dealing with a lower body injury. He'll be reevaluated apparently in a few weeks. So while it's week to week, it's a minimum of probably 3 weeks for Brindley to be out of the lineup for a Colorado team that's they're firing on all cylinders, so they'll be fine with Brindley out of the lineup. Colorado hasn't had a lot of injuries so far this season, comparatively speaking, especially with some of the other teams in the league. But when they get them, A, they're used to getting injuries, and B, they have the depth in their organization to deal with it. Victor Hedman placed on LTIR by the Tampa Lightning. Of course, the LTIR rules have changed this year, so you don't get as much cap relief as you would have in previous seasons. With Hedman out of the lineup, Tampa's still put together a decent record while Hedman's been out. So we'll see how long he ends up being out, but LTIR says it's going to be a while. As I mentioned before, with Romanov going through the shoulder surgery, you guys can let me know how you feel about the fact that it's just the one game and Romanov and all this and how that's going to affect the Islanders. It'll be interesting to see how they do. Their game starts pretty quickly here. They're at home against Seattle, which features Lane Lambert making his return to face the team that he had coached previously. The Boston Bruins have activated Elias Lindholm off of injury reserve, so he's returning tonight against San Jose. That should be a good boost for a Boston team that could probably use a little bit of a boost anyways, at least offensively. And so we'll see if Lindholm jumps right back in and starts producing or if it takes a little bit. Interesting note here that the president of hockey operations in Calgary, Don Maloney, is not giving up on this season. And I'll be honest, he doesn't really need to. This is an early, it's still early in the season. We're a little past 20 games in. The odds of Calgary making the playoffs are obviously not great, but they've been playing better recently, and yeah, you don't necessarily give up on the season until you're about 10 points out. At that point, it does become very, very difficult to make up that gap, but I do think that the Calgary Flames not necessarily giving up on this season is fine, but I do expect at some point in time we'll see Kadri become available, Anderson become available. I think what they can get for these players is probably going to be a little bit too much for them to turn down. So we'll see how all that goes. I wanted to go ahead and plug this here. So right now, of course, Hockey Fights Cancer is the big thing in the National Hockey League. The charity that I've worked with before, and I'm going to plug them again here because there's kind of a fun matching that's going on right now. So it is wckfoundation.ca. So it's the West Coast Kids Foundation. I have tried before to set up like a donation drive on YouTube because you have that option, right, where you can have your community, raise money for charity, but it's not listed on there. And I think it's because it's a Canadian charity out of Burnaby. It's not one of the big main charities that are listed. I don't even have the option to add it. So I'll just say, I'll plug their website, wckfoundation.ca. What they do is they support an entire family of a child that's going through cancer treatment. So kids going through cancer treatment, we know they get talked about a lot. As I mentioned, Hockey Fights Cancer is very much front and center right now at the NHL games. But West Coast Kids keeps in mind the brothers and sisters as well and make sure that everybody's taken care of and nobody feels like their needs aren't being met during this tough time and to keep everybody's spirits up. So they're a good foundation. They're a good charity. And right now, every dollar that's being given is being matched. So there's an anonymous donor that's basically said they will match up until $40,000 worth of donations until December 31st. So I did donate myself today when I saw that because I thought, cool, we'll see, how many people this ends up helping. It should help a bunch. They're very transparent about where that money's going and what that money does and how that helps people. So it is the one charity that I have talked about before, and I'm sure I will talk about them again. They do not know that I'm doing a little promo for them in here. I like to mention them because I know they do really good work, and they have been very forthcoming with here's people and testimonials and all this, and so it's a good charity, been around for a while now, and I figured I would put them into this video because there is so much talk right now about Hockey Fights Cancer, which is a great thing that the NHL keeps doing every year, and it does give hope to people. So hope's really important. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. I will talk to you again soon.